And for a quick getaway into the night, nothing comes faster than wheels.
Good evening, welcome again to Wheels. Tonight, absolutely no hanging around whatsoever. In our last series, the biggest reaction we had to any programme was for our first visit to Santapod. Well, we're back again on the starting line in Bedfordshire for drag racing.
Okay, everybody, lie down on the floor and keep calm.
This is what KLF is about. Also known as the justified entrance of Moo, furthermore known as a jazz.
Santapod celebrating its 25th anniversary, and the sport of drag racing is celebrating something of a revival in this country. We'll be featuring a wide variety of classes here, projectiles laughingly known as cars and indeed bikes. Top of the bill, the Clash of the Titans, the Top Fuelers, the Formula One of drag racing. It's a class dominated in Europe by the Scandinavians and particularly by women drivers. They include Liv Burstad of Norway, the European record holder, a financial director of a clothing company back home. She's faster than most men in the business and rapidly becoming a headline catcher throughout the world. Monica Oberg, the Swedish nurse who cares for Alzheimer's disease patients in the week. Her attention at the weekend, though, switches to speed. And a newcomer to the sport from Norway, 26-year-old Oive Jakobsen. She works in a police department at home. She used to race motorbikes. Now she's on four wheels, though. She's another one chasing the status and achievements of Liv Burstad.
Has life changed for you recently?
Yes, at home it's changed a little bit. It's a lot of people who know who you are, but I like to talk to people, so it's no problem.
Liv is away, hard and straight, right the way through the quarter mile, absolutely superb. 5.39, 260 miles per hour.
When I'm home in Sweden during the winter, I'm just working with my steady job, and in the summertime I do this, and when I go back home I have to work.
But do you find it satisfactory or do you find it too hectic?
Sometimes it's hectic, but I like it.
And that looks a lot better. Monica Oberg still not a good start, not a good bit, but really going for it at the top end. Oh yes! 5.35, 270 miles per hour.
So Santapod is your debut in Top Fuel racing.
Yeah.
How have you done so far?
I had one run yesterday and I went up in smoke, so not very good yet.
And there's a nice practice launch for her. That looks quite good. Something to build on as she goes through the quarter mile. 8.87, she qualifies.
A field dominated by Scandinavians with one notable exception. John Lovett from Redcar in Yorkshire in the Valence Lovett Top Fuel Dragster, with Chris McGee, a crew chief from American Drag Racing, running the team. He's an Australian, in fact, designer and builder of the only quad cam engine in drag racing, backing John Lovett with a lot of expertise and power.
The problem is very new into it at the minute. I've only driven the car twice, and most of the people here are extremely experienced. So I would say we've got a few odds against us this weekend. We'll do our best. We've got an awful lot of stiff competition in the championship series, and we just hope we can keep the British flag flying.
Really run as straight as a die. That looks a good run from Jonathan Lovett all the way through, and the Englishman runs 5.43, 256 miles per hour.
It's not only the women drivers who catch the eye here. Kim LaHaye is the guest crew chief of the Finnish driver Risto Putiainen. Kim, the daughter of one of the big names in American drag racing, Dick LaHaye, the 1987 Top Fuel champion. Kim is in fact her father's crew chief on her first visit to Europe.
Tell me what your hopes as a crew chief here are at Santa Pod this weekend.
Well, I'd sure like to win the race for these guys. Good bunch of guys. It's their first time out with a nitro car. And it's my dad's old car, the 89 car. And just like to try to win the race for him.
And now Risto Putiainen comes out into the other lane, but something has let go. If we look behind Risto's car, we can see a whole trail of fluid right the way down that right-hand lane.
It looks pretty serious. What do you think the problem is?
Well, I think I was pulling too hard in burnout, so we lost a piston or two, I think. We'll find out pretty soon what happened.
Kim, what's the verdict on the patient?
It did hurt the crankshaft and hurt some other parts in it that we don't have spares on. And so unfortunately we're not going to be able to race anymore this weekend. These cars are real hard to drive, especially when you're first learning. And it's easy to over rev the engine. It's a hard thing to do the burnouts in these things.
Well, just a quick reminder of the grammar of drag racing, the sport which has developed from racing down the high street drag in the United States. At the top of the range, the car's fueled by nitromethane, basically an explosive. It costs around £40 a gallon. They use up to 15 gallons each time they're out there. Then there are methanol or alcohol-powered cars all the way down the scale to mixed fuels and, of course, the ordinary garage 4-star. It's a sport with a language of its own. ETs, RTs, Christmas trees, breakouts, blowouts, cutouts, sandbagging. A sport where the start is crucial. ET, the elapsed time. The time it takes to get from the start line to the finish a quarter of a mile away. That's what shows on the board, along with the terminal speed as you cross the finishing line. So it's all about quick reactions, massive speed, keeping these monsters in a straight line, and of course beating your opponent past the finish line.
Our first pair in this clash of titans here on the bank holiday Monday complete their first burnouts there. On the right-hand side of our picture, the man that the whole crowd here at Santa Pod is behind, the 29-year-old from Redcar, Jonathan Lovett, his first season as a Top Fuel drag racer. He came out yesterday and qualified in the number 4 spot with an unheard of time for a British driver of 5:43. His opponent from Sweden, this beautifully prepared car, an ex-Peter Lance car, a Peter Lance paint scheme, Connie Anderson. Connie Anderson, the number 5 qualifier with a run of 5:86. They're coming up to the start line. The tension here, you can feel it. Cut it with a knife. Jonathan Lovett in the left-hand lane, Connie Anderson from Sweden in the right-hand lane. They're moving slowly forward into the light beams which control the start. Connie Anderson's the last one to go in. And a big plume of smoke there from Jonathan Lovett, and Connie Anderson gets to the top end first, and smoke coming from the right-hand side of his engine. In slow motion replay, let's see what happened as they leave the start line. Certainly Connie Anderson was slightly away in front of Jonathan Lovett. His reaction time was a lot better. And suddenly, up in smoke goes Jonathan Lovett's car. Well, it could just be lighting up the tyres. There's no other flames or anything like that from the car. So it could well be that he overpowered the track. So Jonathan Lovett loses traction completely. And then let's watch Connie Anderson to see exactly what happens there. Smoke, flame, conrod out through the bottom. That's the end of that engine.
A driver can only do or work with the equipment he's got. The equipment was set up absolutely perfectly yesterday. Stuart, the crew, Chris McGee, absolutely brilliant. Today, we're just a very small amount out on the clutch. The car left nice, it got further out into the track and started to smoke the tyres. I felt that it wasn't right and come off the throttle.
In the next quarter-final, a solo pass for Tony Brinterson. Because of the problems of Risto Poitiainen, Brinterson eased through to the last four and was emerging as one of the favourites.
It's the duel of the ladies, Sweden against Norway. Monica Öberg in the left-hand lane as we look at the screen now. Monica from Sweden. From Norway in the other lane, that's this newcomer to Top Fuel drag racing, Eva Jacobsen. Both drivers bringing the cars back behind the start line, and still there's a wee bit of a problem for Monica Öberg. She's still not really putting down a good burnout with the car. Spoke to her earlier on. She seems to think everything is in order. Well, she's trying a little bit harder that time and certainly smoking the tyres there, and a nice couple of rubber strips going across that start line in the right-hand lane. Monica ended up down the bottom of the 5-second bracket, 5:35. She was the number 3 qualifier. The number 6 qualifier, the novice driver in the other lane, Eva Jacobsen, she qualified number 6 with an 8:87. It should go Monica's way, but this is drag racing. We move into stage. Both drivers sitting in pre-stage. Who's going to move into stage? They're going. And Monica away very, very well indeed. That's going to be another great run for her in the right-hand lane. It is 5:47, 257 miles per hour, but a lose-out time for Eva of 6:12, 234. That is the quickest that lady has ever been. So here's the start line. Monica Öberg in the left-hand lane hooks up those front wheels. Eva just a little bit behind her there, but Monica storms away there. That is a beauty of a run. That last burnout must really be telling. You can see those back wheels growing tall, and she takes the win.
What about the burnout? How important was it to get that right?
Yeah, the track wasn't good enough, so it was important that the tires were really hot.
Is the track still giving you a few problems?
Yeah, it is.
Explain that to us. Why is that?
Oh, it ain't that sticky that it should be.
Oiva, you didn't win, but you don't seem too unhappy.
No, I'm happy. 6:12, that's almost a 5, and this is my first race. I'm happy.
Is it better than you expected?
Yes, it is.
The engine sounds very, very nice and crisp. Crew chief Runa Phil just peering into the cockpit to make sure the oil pressure is there, everything is in order. She goes up to the start line. She's run a 5:13 with this car. She was our number 1 qualifier this weekend with a 5:22. She's on a bye run through into the second. Such a beautifully controlled run. That is textbook run, and look at that time, 5:27, a terminal speed of 272 miles per hour.
Well, on to some action on two wheels now with the motorbikes and the premiere of 3 classes of street bikes. A lot of fuel additives allowed here, including nitrous oxide injection and turbochargers, but all the bikes must have treaded street legal tyres. This is Super Street.
Jared Frost in the right-hand lane on his Suzuki E2. John Bent in the left-hand lane on his GSXR Suzuki. Both running in Super Street Bike. John Bent was our number 3 qualifier, ran a 9:53. Jared Frost was our number 4 qualifier, ran a 9:58. So close, and look at that leaping run away from Jared Frost there. But they're going side by side along the quarter. It could be anybody's. It's John Bent at the top end, just snatches the win with a 9:74. Jared Frost losing out 10 seconds dead. So the first semi-final in Super Street Bike pits Steve Sykes against John Bent. Steve Sykes got through into this round with a run of 9.08 at an incredible terminal speed of 165 miles per hour. John Bent got through to this round with a run of 9.74, a terminal speed of 147 miles per hour. Well, Steve Sykes is another one of these men who can run down into the 8-second bracket. John Bent has been around drag racing for a long time. Both riders on Suzukis. This is going to be close, but I wonder whether Steve Sykes has got all of his problems sorted out. And it's John Bent. Steve Sykes has got some problems there. Can he catch up? He's got a bit of extra power. He gives up. It's John Bent, goes against the form book, head down across the tank. He takes the win with a 9.74, 144 miles per hour. So here's the opponent for John Bent in the final of Super Street Bikes. All on his own, Neil Midgley. He's a man who today has given us an 8-second run. This is fantastic. Street bikes running in the 8-second bracket at speeds in excess of 160 miles per hour. What a beautiful looking machine this is, based on a GSXR 1100. He has run previous to today an 893, has run an 898 today. And there he goes. Let's have a look at his time of speed as he completes it. Not crushing the engine that time, 9.77, a slow terminal speed, 117 miles per hour. He's in the final.
One of the most interesting car classes is the Pro Mods, the fastest saloon cars, or door slammers in drag racing parlance. They run on the most powerful fuels and come in all shapes and sizes and vintages. Dave Mingay of Chigwell in Essex is driving a Vauxhall Calibra, the first outing here for a brand new car, costing £55,000 to put on the track, and also carrying our onboard camera. Well, Dave, this is the car that Vauxhall launched as something special for the 90s. You clearly decided that it needed a little bit more special.
Yeah, that's right. It's a very aerodynamic shape, so I like the look of it, so I decided to use one of these things. But of course, we've changed a few things, as you can see by looking around it. We put an 8.2 litre engine in the thing, a racing transmission, and she accelerates from 0 to 60 in about 0.7 of a second.
Now, unlike the top fuelers, the Formula One cars, as it were, you've got, as you say, you've got to change gear as you go along. How difficult does that make it for you?
It makes the car a bit more twitchy to drive, because of course I can only use one hand on the wheel because I have 3 gear changes to make on the way down, and trying to drive one of these things one-handed at about 190 miles an hour, it can get a bit hairy sometimes.
So let's just ride with top Pro Mod driver Dave Mingay to see how many actions he has to accomplish in an 8-second pass. Up to the start line. He's already in first. He changes to second, changes into third, changes into top, and flies right the way through the quarter mile, goes through the fishing gantry, and out comes the parachute release. That's the end of the quarter. Off goes the engine. So completing the burnouts under the tower, 2 British cars, both fitted with large American engines. In the left-hand lane, we have Dave Pollen with the Pollen Count car. Dave from Edmonton in London, 510 cubic inch Chevrolet engine. He was our number 6 qualifier with a run of 880. And our camera car, Dave Mingay, sits with the onboard camera in the Vauxhall Calibra. He qualified in the number 3 position with a run of 825. And problems on the start line for everybody there. Dave Mingay struggles on the start line to get traction, and Dave Pollen pulls a red light. So that's going to take a wee bit of sorting out.
Well, Dave, what went wrong there?
We activated the nitrous oxide system for the first time, which gives us an extra 300 horsepower boost for race day. And the car's new, everything's new, something in the electronic system has failed, and it just coughed and died on the start line. Fortunately, my opponent pulled a red light, which means he's automatically disqualified. So although I didn't complete the quarter mile, by going about a foot and then stopping, I've actually won the race.
Well, Tim Cook completes his burnout, coming out alongside Dave Mingay. Dave Mingay in the other lane with our camera on board, and I don't know whether Dave has got problems down there with the Vauxhall Calibra again. Certainly it hasn't been his day. We've been looking forward to seeing him put in a run. There's our camera inside the car, and a crew chief with his head inside. What's up, Dave? Is it terminal? Let's have a look, see. They've shut the door. No, he's moving back. It's good. We're still on the go here. Tim Cook in the other lane puts in a practice launch. And what these two are going to do is go side by side in this first of the semi-finals in Pro Mod. And they're both going to try their cars with a big blast of nitrous oxide injection. So he moves up to the line now. You can see inside the car, just moving forward with Dave Mingay. He's got that Chevrolet Bel Air of Tim Cook in the opposite lane, easing forward into those staging beams that control the start line sequence. Here they go. Watch for a wheels up as we start, and they're away together. And it's a good start there from Dave Mingay. It's going to be Mingay all the way. Tim Cook coming back now towards the top end. This is getting really close. And it's Tim Cook who takes the win, just slides through at the top end with a run of 8.21. and an 8.64 lose out in the right-hand lane for our camera car. But what a fantastic run from those two. So here comes the green, Tim Cook and Dave Mingay. But the red light has come on at the bottom of the Christmas tree for Dave Mingay. As we followed through, we were getting excited there because we thought our camera car was going to be the winning car there. And indeed reaches the top end first, but of course a red light eliminates him.
Well, Dave, the red light saved you in the first race, but it's cost you dearly in that one.
Yes, it appears that we've got a bit of a problem with the front spoiler of the car, and it appears to be tripping the lights. I didn't really know where I was on the start line. I was further forward than I thought, and I pulled a red light, unfortunately, despite getting to the finish line before the other guy.
It was actually a good run, wasn't it?
Yes, it was a good run. It was a good race. It was very close. We were a couple of feet apart at the top end, but the red light did me.
Well, our next pair coming out to the start line in the left-hand lane, that's Bernie Hepworth with the ex-Betsonhurst Rover Sterling. Right-hand lane, Dave Warne driving the newly imported Trans Am. Dave Warne, our number one qualifier here today with a run of 7.88. Bernie Hepworth qualified in the number 4 position with an 8.65. Big engines in both of these machines as they move up to the start line. They both come from the north part of England. They're good mates away from the strip. Are they going to be good friends at the end of this race? There's the green, and problems there for Dave Warne. That's the favourite, the number 1 qualifier. Balked on the start line. Bernie Hepworth is long gone. So out goes the number 1 qualifier, and it's a win with an 8.53 run for Bernie Hepworth. We go back to the start of that one, and you can see the problems there for Dave Warne as they come into stage. Dave Warne starts first, but then he bogs down just over that start line, and Bernie Hepworth is gone.
OK, we're going to take our foot off the gas for just a moment. We'll be back, though, after the break with funny cars. Welcome back. Well, when we came to Santa Pod back in September, we didn't have too much luck with the funny cars. They all blew up, except one. Norman Wilding of Canvey Island, Essex, who's back in contention here and giving us an insight into just how fast the driver has to work when he's on the strip.
Okay, having pre-warmed the tyres on the burnout, I now approach the Christmas tree, and as I approach the Christmas tree, as soon as I see the pre-stage, I'm creeping forward. As soon as the pre-stage light comes on, I reach down and I get this lever which
completely changes the fuel system onto the high side. And then I release the brake slightly, and as I see the stage light come on, I remove my foot from the clutch. As soon as the green's on, I'm on the loud pedal, let go of the brake, and then I hit second gear within a couple of seconds down the track. I leave off the throttle, on with the parachutes, and that's it, run over.
Well, there's a huge smoky burnout there from Norm Wilding. Always been cute on the burnouts. He had a problem this morning when he put in his first qualifier, lit the tyres up, i.e. spun the wheels just like he's done for the burnout, instead of actually getting all the traction down onto the strip. So hoping this time to get in with a proper 5-second run. Now at the moment he has put in a 10-second pass. He's the number 2 qualifier, so he will be looking to move up a wee pace. The man above him is the California kid of Clive Michelle, who's run a 7. So Norm will be looking for that 5-second pass. But what a beautiful car, Chevrolet Beretta, paint scheme by Norman himself, designed and put on. Eases up to the start line, moves into stage. Wow, that's a load right over to the side, pulls it back, Norman. Oh, he just drives through it. What a wonderful piece of driving. Well, my goodness, everyone holding their hearts with that one. But he cracks off a 7.13, removes a lot of the paint from the side at 148 miles an hour. Well, let's have a look at that as we come away from the start line, and you can see him going a wee bit out of shape there already, and then coming off towards this side, and he'll come right over towards the Armco. Look at that, it looks as though he's going to go straight through it, but he keeps driving. And this is Norm Wilding at his best, pulls it right back into the centre of the strip. Oh, it's a nice cruise.
A bit hairy. What happened?
Yeah, that was a well hairy run, but this is the first time we managed to hook the car up this weekend. The tyres have been spinning prior, and we did want to check the fuel system out. To check the fuel system out, we need to read these spark plugs, and to read the spark plugs, we must go a certain distance down the track to see what's happened to them. So it was a wild ride, but I hung on in there, got to the point that I needed to, shut off, come back, we pulled the plugs out, and they're real good. So we now know that we can go a lot further down the track, so tomorrow we put in a full pass.
And how about that for a wonderful burnout there for Clive Michelle, the man from Northampton. Clive Michelle running in a fuel altered. That's a Model T body with no enclosed bodywork. Clive just sits there in that Model T body, the engine the same as the funny car in front of the driver, running with a 500 cubic inch Keith Black engine. Both of these machines have that engine. Now in qualifying, Clive Michelle was the number 2 qualifier with a run of 7.06. Norm Wilding was the number 3 qualifier with a run of 7.13, but both of them are running a little bit below their normal pace. Now Norm Wilding has run down into the 5s with the John Wolfe car. Clive Michelle has run into the 6s with the little fuel altered, the California kid. But Clive Michelle really does get up to some antics with this car. It tends to leap around a little bit. It's a very short wheelbase, so let's see how they get on. Well, away together, and they're really flying through there. It's Norm Wilding at the top end, though, and a 6.35 for Norm Wilding, 192 miles per hour, but the quickest ever for Clive Michelle, 6.68 at 204 miles per hour. That could well be a world record.
The car is based on a 1923 Ford, so you know, to do 205 mile an hour in 6 seconds, we're really pleased. Yeah.
That's the best you've ever done, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it makes it the fastest fuel altered outside America. So you know, we're very pleased.
Norman, well done. You happy with that one?
Yeah, I'm well pleased with that. We had it back down a little bit because we was running Clive. Clive's a good runner, but we know we can beat him, so we had it a little bit soft. But it's not going to be so easy in the final against Harlan. He's got a good car there, and he's got some guys over from America setting it all up. We're doing okay. We're going to take him in the final.
On to pro stock bikes, one step away from sanity. They look like road-going bikes, but the rules are strict, the sophistication's considerable. The quick ones are in the 7-second brackets, over 170 miles an hour. Martin Bishop of Old Bexley in Kent is the only competitor on a 750cc bike. It's a two-stroke Kawasaki, but he's got a few tricks up his sleeve.
I'm trying to inject nitrous oxide into this bike as soon as we've got it running right. It's a brand new chassis, 15-inch wheel, aluminium wheelie bars, all the state-of-the-art equipment. As soon as we run right and get the clutch sorted out right, we'll be using the nitrous.
What about your competitors? What are they running?
They're running all Suzuki 4-strokes. This is a 2-stroke Kawasaki, which is totally unique. This is why I chose it, to be a little bit different.
So we come up to the first semi-final in pro stock bike. David and Goliath, Len Paget, the man sitting nearest the camera. Martin Bishop on that little 752-stroke Kawasaki in the left-hand lane. Is he going to try that little magic ingredient, nitrous oxide, to try and get him up with the big boys? It's Len Paget all the way, 8.43, but a good run for Martin Bishop, 9.65. A little squirt of nitrous oxide there nets him 152 miles per hour at the top end.
On the 1300cc Suzuki here, Kerry Visick, a 23-year-old from Southampton. She's a service engineer for Cash Point machines, and she's still counting the cost of a high-speed crash last season.
Yes, came off 150 miles an hour at Avon Park in October last year. Just being in the wrong place at the wrong time, really. It was a combination of track conditions and weather conditions, and the bike just high-sided me off. A little bit of damage to myself and a little bit to the bike, but we were back out 4 weeks later. Here we came. I was still strapped up, really, but I decided I had to get back on it before the end of the year in case I got a bit frightened of it. And we came out here and we ran within a tenth of my best previous time, so we did pretty well, I think.
Well, we've just had David and Goliath. It's now the battle of the sexes. Closest to the camera, that young lady from Southampton, Kerry Visick, up against Cole Rule. Cole Rule really been having a great season, but as they go towards the halfway mark, it could be anybody's race. Is Kerry Visick coming back to the top end? She has! And look at that time for Kerry Visick. She takes out Cole Rule with 100th of a second, 8.58 to 8.59, and a terminal speed 156 miles per hour. Congratulations to Kerry. She is going to be so happy. Well, I don't know what happened there, so we'll follow the replay to see when Kerry Visick went into the lead. So they're away together. Cole Rule has been running this bike so well over the past few weeks. He's taken quite a few trophies, but Kerry comes back, just going through that halfway marker there. Kerry comes back and she powers past Cole Rule. Cole Rule still going for it. Look at this, right on the finish line. Kerry sneaks in.
Right, back to the big boys, the semi-final of the Top Fuel. The Swede Connie Anderson won his quarter-final, but he blew his engine up in the process, so he's failed to make the last four. That has meant the big confrontation now is between Monica Oberg and Liv Burstadt, with Tony Brinterson given a bye. Let's rejoin commentator John Price.
That's Glenn Micras there, just checking to see whether the engine is at the correct temperature. In this day and age of technology, one still uses the warmth on the palm of one's hand to see whether the engine's getting too hot or isn't hot enough. So up to the start line then, moving into stage. Here comes Tony Brinterson. He's got an actual electric reaction time on the start line. As he starts moving into the final stage beam. Here he goes. And that looks absolutely superb. And look at that, 5.26, 274 miles per hour. Absolutely incredible. His fastest ever run, and as straight as a die. Well, let's just have a look at the replay there. Nothing to say at all. The car flexes so madly as he hooks up all of the power, just sways a little bit there, but other than that, a fully controlled run the whole quarter mile. Beautiful stuff. Absolutely superb burnouts there from our two ladies in the other semi-final. Monica Öberg, at long last, this young Swedish lady, actually getting a great burnout there. She's put two huge strips of rubber down across the start line. The lady in the red car is out to do battle with the current European champion. That's Liv Bergstad in the other lane in the blue and white Mobil 1 car from Norway. So there's a lot of contention going on out there at the moment. It's Norway versus Sweden. The two girls, the two ladies who they call the queens of the Formula 1 of drag racing, are out there together. Well, Monica Öberg ran a 5:47 to get through into the semi-final. Liv Bergstad ran a 5:27. We know Libby can run down into the 10. She's run a 5:13. Monica has run a 5:13. So these two cars are so evenly matched. Both of the crew chiefs now just making sure everything is in order as they bring them up to the start line. Well, I wouldn't like to make a prediction here. These two girls are good friends onto the track, but when they get on it, they're real workmen. They don't want to give in. So in the right-hand lane, as we look at the screen, it's the Mobil 1 car of Liv Bergstad. In the left-hand lane, the red car, the Bosch car of Monica Öberg. Liv Bergstad fully into stage straight away. Monica just easing that red car in. Here comes oh, they're away together. Monica is just in front. They're really going for it. They go towards the top end. It's going to be Monica. Monica Öberg takes out the European champion. What a turnaround. It was all done on reaction time. Monica Öberg, the best reaction from the start line. 5:41, she takes the win, shuts down the European champion with a run of 5:27. And they're away. It's Monica who just gets away first. And don't forget, of course, with drag racing, although one of these cars may show the quicker time, as Liv Bergstad's car did, it's always the car that gets to the top end first is the winner. And who gets there first? Monica Öberg.
Well, Liv, unfortunate there. Beaten and a bit of a surprise to us. Is it a surprise to you?
Yes, but I wasn't good enough, so it's my fault. So I was too slow at the start.
Monica, tremendous run. How do you feel after that?
That feels great. Everything's worked.
Have you beaten Liv Bergstad before?
Yeah, I think so. When she just got her license and yeah.
I was too slow. It was too bad reaction time. I could cry. The best man win and I didn't win. That's what I'm unhappy about.
We'll take a break now. Back in a moment with those all-important finals. Again, the final stages of the main event here at Santapod. The top alcohols, they're the smaller brothers of the funny cars and the top fuelers. Smaller version, similar styles though, and still bags of power.
Gary Page in that funny car took over the driving of this machine last year when he quit Top Fuel funny car racing. His brother-in-law is the crew chief, the man out the front there running back. His opponent, another Englishman, Paul Jackson from Southend in Essex. Paul, his first season in alcohol cars with this American imported dragster, was campaigned by John Dowse, the man who is now in Top Fuel. Well, Gary Page's car, very, very fast. They've been timed over the 8th mile, having a terminal speed of 189 miles per hour. If that checks out again today, that could be one of the world's quickest alcohol funny cars. So here they come, building up the revs on the start line. Paul Jackson, the last one to move in. There's the three. Gary Page away first, swaying a little bit from side to side in his normal manner, but he's really going for it. That's the win for Gary Page. Clouds of blue smoke at the top end. Wow, what's happened to the engine there? But a 676, 207 miles per hour. Paul Jackson coming in second, but accredited himself well with an 830 at 166 miles per hour. But there is loads of smoke at the top end.
As I went through the finish lights and shut the car off, it looks like we've broken a rod, and it pushed the spark plug out, and it shot all the oil out onto the headers. So it was a lot more dramatic than it really looked. It was just oil on the exhaust pipes with all the smoke, but it means we're out for the next round.
Well, there's a very upset Craig Lowe's there. He should have been out racing against Barry Sheevels in that semi-final, and he doesn't look happy at all. So just one more competitor in this semi-final, Barry Sheevels, the company director from Nottingham, in his ex-Monica Ober car, now running with alcohol power, and he puts down a 672, a terminal speed of 195 miles per hour. That, I think, is Barry's best ever.
We finally managed to get it started, and I'm pulling out ready to go and make the run. I'm late, and there's some guy waving at me, you know, to stop, you know. Well, you know, the position of the driver in that situation, I take all my instructions from Stuart, the crew chief. Now, that's what I do. So there's no good him telling me. But anyway, they've stopped us from running.
We're into the final of Pro Mod, this class which has created a lot of interest. And the current British Pro Mod champion, Tim Cook, in his 7/8 size Chevrolet Bel Air, one of the contenders here for the final. A man who is always on the lookout for new innovations to sharpen up his act.
Well, you know, we had the new engine in for the end of last year, which we tested, and that's working out quite well, although we haven't got it exactly how we want it. But the main thing is its wing. This exerts a lot of downforce on the car, so that at the middle of the track, when the wind starts to take effect, pushes the tyres down onto the track, so we don't get any tyre spin or tyre shake, which really does spoil a run.
His opponent, Bernie Hepworth, and what Bernie must be thinking, I just do not know, because he's come out this meeting with a new car, a new engine, and he's got into the final of Pro Mod, running against last year's champion. So what a setup we've got here. We've got a Chevrolet Bel Air from 1955, and the smoke coming out of the car there is just venting the nitrous oxide system to the atmosphere to make sure there's a good, cool, hard charge up at the engine when he presses the button. So it's a Rover Sterling against a Chevrolet Bel Air. Where can you go and see racing like this? Here we go, both of these cars quite capable of running down into the 7-second bracket. Tim Cook in the lane to the right, Bernie Hepworth in the Red Rover Sterling as we move up, and they're away together. A great start there from both of them, and Tim Cook's car really just keeps the nose down on the ground and goes for it. Look at that time, 7.57, 172 miles per hour, but there was a problem mid-track for Bernie Hepworth. He went a wee bit out of shape there, runs a 10.05, but shuts right down at the top end to 90 miles per hour. So let's just see from a different angle if we can pick out what happened to Bernie Hepworth's car. They're away from the line, both of them very, very clean indeed. Tim out in front, and then suddenly Bernie gives a little twitch there, and it's all over for Bernie Hepworth. Something has gone radically wrong with the car, and Tim is in front to the end. So we move on to the final of Pro Stock Bike, and what a final this is going to be. Kerry Weisick here on her Suzuki has had as a mentor for a good number of years now the man who is sitting in the opposite lane, Len Padgett. Len's got through into this round with a run of 8.43. Kerry has got there with one of her best ever runs of 8.58. We spoke to her earlier on. She says she's going to beat Len this time around. She's certainly out of the traps first. Well, they're really going for it. Will Len stand to be beaten by his protege? They go towards the top end. It's Padgett who gets there first, and and look at his time, 8.28, 161 miles an hour, but Kerry Weisick goes through, loses out with an 8.55. That's going to be her best ever time, 156 miles per hour. So back to the start, and let's just have a look, because Kerry Weisick definitely left the start line first. Len Paget's heart must have been in his mouth. I'm going to be beaten. He's winding open that throttle, getting up through that gearbox as quickly as he can go, and just by the halfway mark he starts pulling ahead, and through the finish line he's about 2 bike lengths in front.
So, how does Clive Michel's machine suddenly appear in the funny car final? Well, American Harlan Thompson failed to make the start line. So, Norman Wilding took the title by default and challenged his old pal Clive Michel to another joust.
So here we come, Clive Michel straight into stage. Norman Wilding easy forward, and it's Clive Michel who's away first, but look at the power of that funny car in the left-hand lane for Norman Wilding. Absolutely flies through, and 5.92, 243 miles per hour. That's why that man keeps winning funny car. We move into the final of Street ET. This is where the drivers dial in their own handicapping times. We've got a Ford Mark II Mustang, the yellow car, with a dialed-in time of 15.20. That's in the hands of Graham Jones. And Chris Evans in the little 400E has a dialed-in time of 13.70. That's how the timekeepers set up the handicaps. And Chris Evans has got to try in that little 100E chase and pass the Mustang, but not go quicker than his 13.7 handicapping dial-in time. And look at that, he takes the win, 13.74 at 85 miles per hour, just 0.04 of a second on the right side of his dial-in time.
And so to the big one, the clash of the Titans, the final of the Top Fuel.
So Tony Brintonson finds himself in yet another final against another lady. This time, instead of being Liv Berstadt, he's against the Swedish lady, Monica Öberg. Now, these two really are good chums. They've both indicated that they're going to win here this evening. It's getting colder out there now. That strip is losing quite a bit of its traction, and things are going to be harder for these two drivers. Those cars are going to be a little bit more slippery. They bring them both back behind the start line. Well, Tony has got into that final running a quickest best ever of 5.26 at an incredible 274 miles per hour. Well, all the crew round Monica Öberg's car at the moment. I don't know whether there's a problem there. She seems to be stuck in reverse, and every time she lets her foot off of the brake, she's rolling backwards. I hope this isn't going to give us a problem. Not at this late stage. We've been waiting so long for these two cars to come out. But certainly it looks as though the Bosch Top Fueler is stuck in reverse. Tony Brintonson is sitting up there in stage. That's it. It's going to be a single run. It's going to be Tony only on his own. There's the win, and it's problems indeed for Monica Öberg. But look at Tony Brintonson go, and it's a 5.22. 274 miles per hour. And what sorrow for Monica Öberg, with right up to the final there, her first final here at Santa Pod. That's a lady who is going to be really, really upset.
Well, what about that then, Tony?
Oh, it was lovely. It was great.
You said after the semi-final you had a little bit in reserve, a little bit of extra power. It seems to have gone even better than you could have hoped for.
Yeah, sure, but we had a lot more.
The clutch was too tight.
And you'd been going so well.
Yeah. That's racing.
She did manage to finish in the final. Look at that, a big hug and a kiss for these two. Give up Monica a nice big round of applause. She just did her final. Into stage, there's the green. They're away together. A good start for Gordon Diggins. Oh, they're away together. Monica is just in front. They're really going for it. They go towards the top.
back next time. Promise you.
That looks another great run there from Jonathan Lockett. That looks brilliant. Look at that. Wow, that's a right over to the side. Pulls it back, Norman. Oh, he just drives through it. But as they go towards the halfway mark, it could be anybody's race. Is Kerry Visit coming back to the top end? She has.
And that's just about it from Santapod, the end of a tremendous high-speed meeting. Thanks very much for watching. We'll see you again next week at Ipswich with Hot Rods. Good night.